Kum Lenin a block Gemara. We are up to today Daf Kuf Mem, and just a quick recap. The Mishnah said if a person had sons and daughters and a tumtum, Kuf Mem Aleph. Sorry, the Kuf Mem Aleph. A person had sons and daughters and a tumtum. And then we said that if there's many assets in Chosim Rubin, the sons inherit, but they have to take care of their sisters, and the tumtum gets pushed around. We had a machlek, the tumtum gets at least something, or according to Baye, actually gets nothing. Or if there's no chosim muwatin, which means there's very few assets, it gets assigned to the girls, and the boys basically get nothing, and the tumtum as well. The girls will push him away and say, maybe you're a boy, because we don't know what he is, as we cannot tell what gender he is. In the next half of the Mishnah, it says that if a man says to, if my wife, says wife, if you give birth to a boy, let him take $100. Gives birth to a boy, the boy is kind of that $100. If he says you give birth to a girl, $100 or $200 actually, the girl then when it arrives in the world, she's kind of those $200. You know what he does is he gives it to a third party and says, acquire it on behalf of this fetus over here, or this embryo, acquired on behalf of this embryo over here. But if there are twins, as the Rashbam explains, they get nothing, because he clearly said a boy or a girl on its own, but not if there's a pair of twins. I guess he realizes big expenses going ahead, he can't afford it. But if he gave birth to a tumtum, gets nothing, because we don't know it's a boy or girl, so he gets nothing. If he says, whatever my wife gives birth to, I want that child to start off with a little bank account, then so be it. And again, if there's no heirs except the tumtum, then of course he is the sole heir. So the Gemara Kuf Mem Aleph Amud Aleph. So what's interesting in our mission, the Gemara picks up straight away. For a daughter, he's offering $200, and for a boy, he's offering $100. Says the Gemara 3 lines at the top. The Gemara has a very fascinating discussion. Says the Gemara, if my wife gave birth to a boy, it's $100. I want this boy to acquire through a third party $100. If my wife gives birth to a girl, I want her to acquire the $200. Remember the bas adiv lemebed. It seems from here that a girl is worth more than a boy. The Gemara is not scared to talk about any subject whatsoever. And the problem is, we had before, we had it not so long ago, the name of Shimon Yochai, Kol she'ena maniach ben liyasha, if you leave behind the sun, to Yashna, because Baruch HaMolov is angry, Shnema back to the Nachlosai. Lebita, yet you transferred your Nachla to the daughter, they navod al ever angry, Shnema, it says, Yem evra hayem, nevra hayem mahu. So the Chayda seems from here that Hashem wants you to have boys. The Gemara explains very interesting. Why Taka they should be angry if you didn't leave any boys? What did you do wrong? What see like this? Le'inyan Yerusha, when it comes to inheritance, ben odiflei. Because what happens when you have a daughter? She marries somebody, and the part of it just throw that Abisha gave to your Shevet now is lost. It's transferred to another Shevet. Abisha gets angry. So there, it's much better to have sons because then it remains in the family. Harvacha, when it comes to harvacha to help out the child, bita difficult. You learned before. If you only have the chasim or watin, where does the money go? To the girl. The boys have to go out there and door knock. The girls, meanwhile, are taken care of. So it comes to that, it's better. Rabbeinu Gershom adds over here that girls generally stay at home. They don't go to work. Paraphrasing. Boys can go get a job. And we don't want the girls to go out there and get a job. We want them to be home. So therefore, for harvacha, who do you take better care of? The girls than the boys. Yeah. Yeah, but the Eibusher went ahead and split it just to roll according to the Shvatim. And then his whole plan is turned over topsy-turvy. Even though that also is going to anything else. But just, therefore, it makes it for your own good. You want to see that everything that you work so hard for a whole lifetime stays in your family. Here, it goes to another family altogether. Another Shevet, another family. Something, yeah, true. What happens when you have more than they do? Says the Gemara, and so now they're angry. Says the Gemara, So Gemara says that both there's advantage here and advantage here. Ushmula Mashmul, a different answer. He says, Hocha b'mafkeres. We're talking about the first child. What's better the first child should be, a boy or a girl? So you would think a boy, because a b'chayr. I can tell you the story of my family. You have to know that these things, you have to have a b'chayr. But forget, Rav Chizda says better to have girls. The Amar Rav Chizda, Bas Tchila, Simen Yafel Abanim. If you have a girl first, it's a good sign for the boys. Why is it a good sign for the boys? Because this girl becomes like a second mother. She's the oldest. And she's going to work very hard. And she has a vested interest. Why does she have a vested interest? Because it says so she helps out raising the children, and she has the best interest, Mephoshim say, because it says when you marry someone, you should check her brothers out. She wants to make sure that her brothers are mentioned, so that people that her shidduchim should come to her easily. So therefore, you have like two mothers. It helps out. So that's why Bas Tchila is a siman yafel abana, good for the children. And Yikid Amri and others say the loy shalta be'eina bisha. There's no ayin hora, because other people say, "Oh, you have so many sons, this would be an ayin hora." The Mashal says very interestingly, "What's the ayin hora here?" So you had a boy first. You had one boy. So what's the ayin hora? We're not saying you had only boys, and and that's what. So something to do with Bafkeres then. And if you had the oldest girl, but 5 boys after that, it would also be an ayin hora. So he says the ayin hora is the b'choy gets double portion. The only reason why all the other brothers are getting less is because the b'choy is there. If it wouldn't be a b'choy, be a girl, they'll get equal portions, bigger portions. So they're the ones. The younger brothers are the ones who are giving ayin hora on the b'choy, because he's causing them a loss monetarily. Anyways, for me, my girls are better to me. I love my girls more than my boys. Now, it sounds like he had boys, but he likes his girls better. So he brings here, what does that mean? So I want to say he meant I'd like that my oldest child was actually a girl, and I'm very happy. But Ashbam doesn't like that because it says my daughter is in plural, not just one daughter, the oldest. So the Rashbam says something which everyone finds very difficult. He says here that he had no sons. They all died. And the only ones that he had were daughters. And therefore, he liked his daughters. And the Rashbam is not very happy. Rabbi Chizda should make such a comment. But everyone has a problem with that, because even the Zayin days, if you remember, he had 2 sons, Mark Shisha, Mayunuk, and there's a Machlekes, who's the older and who's the younger. He had sons. He had other sons. So what does it mean? That he had no sons, or that they died very young. No, they didn't. And they lived on, and he had quite a few sons. So Taisa says, the reason why he liked his daughters better, very interesting, is because then he can choose a son-in-law. You can choose your son, but a son-in-law you can choose. And who was his sons-in-law? Rava, Rami Bar Chama, and Rami Bar Rukva. He had the 3 giants at that time. Now, if you remember the Gemara in Brachas, Rava, if you may, I'll just remind you quickly. The Gemara in Bracha talks about there's a guy called Bar Hoda who used to interpret dreams. If you paid him, he interpreted in a good way. If you didn't pay him, he always. And so Abai and Rava came together to him. Rava didn't want to pay him any money in principle. So every dream, they both shared together the dreams, had very similar dreams. And to Abaya, the Bar Hoda used to give him beautiful brachas, and to Rava, he cursed him. And Rava, had a very difficult life. And one of the things he cursed him was that he should lose his wife. So Rava then found this guy dropped his book, and in the book Rava found it says that the dream depends, how you interpret it. That's what's going to happen. Like the Rashi says, there's a malach, a malach of dreams. So Rava says to this guy, I'm meichel you on everything except Rab Chizda's daughter. So therefore, we see Rab Chizda's daughter obviously was somebody very, very special. And so therefore, so you don't have to only go what Teja says he was happy with his son-in-law. He was happy with his own daughter. Because happy with the son was also not such a big compliment. The idea is that his daughter was something very special, but in Basra Chizda. And we had, if you remember, in the beginning, this Masechta, Daf Yubei, the Gemara talks about the Nevi'as was taken away except by Shaitim Mektanim. And the Gemara tells a story of Chizda was sitting there and his daughter was on his lap. And he had in front of him sitting Rava and Aruk, and he asked his daughter, who do you want? And she said both. So Rava said, I want to be last. So we see there that he married her. In fact, beautiful. I don't remember who says this. What's the shot here? So Rav is cursing out Rav. The only way that Rav can marry is the other guy marries first, and he dies. What is this? Obviously, Rav was then young as well. So it's not like this. Rabbi Bachama says in Arbe Psachim that a man should never marry a woman who's divorced because there are three people in bed, and and you should not marry a woman who's divorced. So if Rabbi Bachama says I am last, then the only way it could be is that the Rabbi who married her first has to die because if Rabbi would have divorced her, he wouldn't have married her. So that's a curse. But Rabbi had no problem with marrying a woman who's divorced. When he said I'm last, he wanted that Rabbi Bachama should divorce his wife, and then I'll marry her, which is what happened. But then he himself killed her because he didn't want to pay money. So it turns out to be, and this is why he was so angry with his Bahar, because Rabbi now was shuldik. If he wouldn't have been last, but Ramacham would have been last, she would still be alive. Because he wanted to last, so therefore Ramacham, divorced or whatever, he married her, and then he didn't want to pay the price of chalemas, and he killed his wife. So he felt very guilty. That's the story, maybe. Anyway, back to the Gemara. Back to the Gemara. So the Gemara. You know who says that a girl's worth more? You said Sabchizda, whatever, the oldest. Rabbi Yehuda holds B'chlal girls are better, boys are better than girls. What do you mean? Hi, Rabbi Yehuda. Sorry, that a girl's also chashiv. Hi, Rabbi Yehuda. Which Rabbi Yehuda are you talking about? Elam Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda, the Tanya. We learned. We had this right in the first Pedic as well, and the Tanya Bashem Beit Rabbi Koil. It said that Abish Ben Avram Chai. So it's Abish Ben Avram Bak Koil. Rameh says Shaloi Hayolabas. So Rameh obviously held that having girls is a big yoch. The Rambam writes in a letter the reason why his hair turned white so early in his life is he had three daughters to marry off, and he had a lot of problems marrying off his daughters. So, and Madre the Rambam had problems marrying off three girls. Imagine an ordinary person, big thing. So, the Pashav Shat Shalahai Lebas didn't have to worry. Abiyudah says Shahai Shalabas Bakro Shmaf. Okay, Abiyudah says he had a daughter. Her name was Bakro. So the Meir says Bakro means Ben. Matya Ben. What's pshat the Meir? Shaloi Hay Labas Nif Hashem Beis Ramakol. So it says the Chassidus for him that the Meir is saying faket. The Meir is saying faket. Abbas is a bracha, and look where does the Eibush write the pasuk Hashem Beis Ramakol? Right after Sarah passed away. Now you say Ramakol. Could have said it the previous pasha. He had a Yitzchak, he had Sarah, everything good. Finally, he has a family. And then he should have said Viv, Hashem Beis Ramakol. Where does it say it? Dafka after Sarah passed away. So it adds more. This is the strength of Avram, that even though he lost his wife, even though he almost killed his own son, even though he never had a daughter, he felt Hashem Rabakah. He was always happy, like Zusha on the pillow. Whatever she gave him, he was happy. And that's Pshat. Shaloi Alabas was not that this is a blessing, that even though this, that's what the Chassidus firm says. Anyhow, Rabbi Yehuda says, he had a daughter, about Koshma. Said your mother, what does that prove? All it proves is that a girl is equal to a boy. How do you see from me that a girl is superior? Our mission says that a girl, he gave 200, and for a boy, he gave 100. So that a girl also wasn't missing. Oh, but that where do you see that's better than a son? Taisha says over here, if he had a daughter, why didn't he just marry his sister? If you hold that the Eden had a din of Ben Noach, and a Ben Noach is mutter, in fact, you don't say if. Taisha holds clearly here that they had a din of a Ben Noach, and the Ben Noach is mutter according to the Deya. That a Ben Noach is mutter with a sister, then why don't you just marry his sister? We're going to have the whole sugya in Sanhedrin, all the Zay mitzvahs Ben Noach, what is included with how far our royals goes. So if you hold you're allowed to marry your sister, they're like, Cain and Hevel, whatever. What's going on here? So Taisha's answers, maybe she was young. Very different. That means this Taisha is definitely argued with Rashi Chumash. Rashi Chumash said Yitzchak married Rivka when he was 3 years old. What can be younger than that? So what do you mean he was very young? And the second answer is that maybe she came from Hagar. And it says he's supposed to check out the girl's brothers. And who's the girl's brother? Yishmael. And he threw her out of the house. So obviously Yitzchak couldn't marry and he married Rivka. Rivka's brother wasn't any better. But Lavan was not the great guy that we think. In fact, why was Lavan any better than Yishmael? Taisha says he didn't want to marry the sister because he had a brother Yishmael. So he married Rivka, who had a brother called Lavan, who Lavan because Lakas HaKoil. How was Lavan any better than Yishmael? Sorry? Very few. We know the rock, but Tej doesn't say that. Okay, maybe. Okay, good Lord. I was going to say something, sorry, I forgot. Doesn't matter. Okay. Anyway, Rabbi Yaakov Emden writes over here. I don't know if you ever read Rabbi Yaakov Misfarim. He can get very angry. So he writes on this thesis. Rachmana litzlan, I think his words are, to say such things that they will goyim. The moment Avram maled himself, and Yisrael, they were Yidden. To entertain the idea, in other words, he's totally, not only does he show that opinion that says, it's a Machlik Rashi and Ramban and the Parshat Emor, not only is negating that opinion that says, but he uses the word chas v'shalom, even say that. Once he's Gamal, he's a Yid. What's Teisha talking about? How can Teisha even say these words? Sorry? Good question. So B'nai Ketura, Machlek, they also had to mal themselves. I mean, everybody maled themselves. He's talking about Avram and Zara, Zara afterwards. Okay, let's continue. Ishmael was no different than Nevid. Nevid maled, he's not. That's right. Actually, the Machlek is that there's a mitzvah of Mila, Rambam, others, for B'nai Ketura, for example, and all other things, children of Avram and Ishmael. Okay, let's go back to the Gemara. So therefore, that can't be Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says a girl is equal to a boy. They say it's better. So the Gemara, the following the time we learned mitzvah laws and as abundant the mitzvah to provide for your daughters the kavachayim lebanim, surely for your sons. And the Gemara adds, this is not part of the Brayso. Why surely your sons? The aski b'toida. The mile of a son is they have a chiv of Talmud Toida. Divrei Ameir. Rabbi Yehuda said mitzvah laws and as abanim, mitzvah to provide for your sons. And then so we add why delay listening, because otherwise it's a very humiliating for them that they have to go and to collect or to do menial tasks to make money. So by saying kavachayim lebanus, Yehuda is telling us that a girl is more chashiv than a boy. A boy, you have a mitzvah to provide. We're having more exuberant afternoon of the whole sugya there, but you have a mitzvah to provide for what age, and then beyond that, we force you, cajole you, if you're rich or poor or average. And then Kalvachayim Lebanus shows us Rabbi Yehuda holds that bonus have more chashiv than boys. So that's the Rabbi Yehuda. So it's not just talking about the oldest, all the girls. Says the Gemara, okay, Elahad, time you tell me, you're telling me girls are more chashiv than boys. So let me ask you a question. We learned in the Brayso, Yolda Zachar Unekeva, a person had a case. Now we don't know what the case is, but it says we had a boy and a girl. Hazachar Noitel Shisha Dinin. The Zachar takes 6 dinin, that's 1.5 mana. A din of golden dinner is 25 sloim. There's 100. There's 100. What do you call it? Sorry, dinner kesef in that, which is 4 dinanim, gold dinanim. He gets 1.5 mana. And then the cave, no tellish it takes only 2 dinim gold dinim, which is a half a mana. See, clearly here that a boy is mochash and a girl. What do you tell me? A mice and Mishnah over here that goes mochash and a boy. What's going on over there? Why is a boy more than a girl? The my, what's that case there? The Gemara says that's an exclusive case, an isolated case. What's the case there? Amar Ravashi. Ravashi said, I said before the Khan, and he answered me, "B'misares." Talking about where he changes words around. What do you mean he changes words around? He said, this is the case. He said, Zochar Tchilin, this particular person said, if a boy is born first, Masayim, he will get 200. Nekeva, Acharav Lakum, and if the second child is a girl, she gets nothing. Then he says, if Nekeva Tchila, the girl is first, there is a mile in that, Mono will get 100. This is what this guy happened to say. And Zochar, and the boy who is born after that, Mono will also get something, 100. Now, what happened was the Yola Zochar and Nekeva, Yinhaimanai, and nothing but Esha. We both born. We don't know which came first. We don't know which came first. And so in this case over here, Norfolk, we don't know which came first. Is Zachar Shakul Manabanashach? The Zachar gets $100 either way. Even if he came second, he said the Zachar should get money. So either way, he gets a money before golden dinner. Either way, first he should get 2 money. Second, he gets 1 month. See, okay. Either money, the other money is a suffix. If he was first, he should get the entire second money, the 4 golden dinner. And if he was second, he doesn't get it all, and the girl gets it. So what do we do? Since the money is a suffix, we divide. This is one of the rayas that Rishonim bring that the halach is like sumchas, because here the Gemara doesn't say sumchas says Mama it doesn't say a liba de sumchas. It says a stam as if according to everybody. This is one of the eyes want to be in Allah like some because others say this case is different. That Rabbanan would be murder. So you want to write harder Tanya. So let me ask you a question. We learned elsewhere, another case, Yolda Zachar cave that gave birth to both. Ain loy elamana. The boy gets only 100. According to you, if the hemshach of this thing is, should get 150, no 1.5 money. What's that case all about? The guy is not giving it to the child that's being born. He's giving it to whoever gives me the good news. The mavasa. If you tell me that it's a boy, you'll get 100. Girl, you get nothing. Okay. But therefore, or if it's a boy, the same thing. A boy is 200, a girl is 100, and therefore the mavasa he only gives, and they're both born together. He only gives 100. Says the Gemara, at the time you look, the one who comes and gives me the news, if he tells me what the first thing that, the first child that my wife gives, if it's a zachar, then he should get a mana. That's right. So it's full pile. Yolda zachar neitel mana. So that's exactly what happens. In the cave, if I tell him if it's a girl, then mana he gets a mana. So if he says the boy, it turns out to be a girl, he gets nothing. But then unless he spelled out, if it's a girl, he gets a mana. And then Yolda in the cave, Ataka turned out to be that she gave birth to a girl, then neitel mana, take the mana. What about if in that case, there, if a boy is born, you get nothing. Because I said, if a girl, get mana. What about Yolda Zocha and Nekeva? What about a boy and a girl is born? Ein loy ela mana. He only gets whether he says a Zocha and Nekeva, you get 100, which even though they're twins, he only gets 100. He didn't say twins. He just says. Not the mother. Yolda, Zachar, Ulikeva. He says a boy or a girl. So why, if a boy and a girl born twins, he gets 100? But Zachar Ulikeva, he didn't say that clearly. No, the father didn't think he'll have twins, so he didn't talk about twins. And what it says, the Amanam, you're talking about a case where he clearly said, you're right. If he didn't say twins, he just said Zachar 100, Nekeva 100, and they're both born twins. He gets nothing because he didn't say twins. And as the Rishonim say, that by twins in those days, most of them didn't survive. And therefore, you didn't anticipate to have twins. In fact, there's all kinds of superstitions that it's a place, it's a shade and whatever. All kinds of superstitions about twins, against twins. So he didn't even entertain the idea. He would give nothing. Yeah, so because he said, only if he said it. If he doesn't say twins, he gets nothing because he didn't think of it. You covered every case. So what do you mind? A boy 100, a girl 100, twins 100. What do you mind? The mote neful. He meant a surviving child. But if the child was a stillborn baby or miscarriage, that you get nothing. Because basically you canvassed every possibility. The only thing he didn't canvass is triplets. I guess he didn't have triplets in those days, so definitely didn't survive. Somebody says to his wife, now Gemara goes, interesting subject. What our Mishnah says is, if you turn to a friend guy, third party, and say, I want you to be zoiche this $100 on behalf of the Uber, on behalf of was ever inside my wife's womb, the kid is zoiche, boy, whatever, girl, so much. So the Gemara tells the story and tries to make it compatible with our Mishnah. The guy says to his wife, he says to his wife that my nechasim, and he gives it to a third party to be zeiche, should go to whoever is inside your womb, whoever the baby is. So what are you trying to do? You're trying to be zeiche for something that's the leibala olam. It's an uber, and because it's a leibala olam. Just like we learn another makadosh leibala olam, it's not kind of fire uber. What are you talking about? So how do you then learn our Mishnah? What our Mishnah clearly say, for a boy 100, a girl 200, and that's it. You have to keep your word. It says, boy, he takes it. In other words, after he's born, he takes $100. You're right. To me, this Mishnah is a mystery. I don't know of any Tana who holds that you can do that. More rather than ask me, I always learn I made holds, other Makadov Shabbat. Says the Gemara. What do you mean? The lame let made it. So Gemara asks right away. What do you mean? You don't know who's the author? Say the author of our Mishnah made the Ahmad, who says other makkah. We had in the kedushin. If a guy says that after you become a giyadus or after I become a gaydish, you're mekudesh to me, the mayor says you're mekudesh. Or after you get a chalitza, after you get a divorce, you're mekudesh. Because Adam matne dover shaloi bala olam. So what do you mean you don't know the author of our Mishnah is? Says Gemara, what are you comparing? The woman is here, but you have to do a maisa to make it happen. So Meir says the chsaron maisa is not a people still rely that it's going to happen, and therefore it's a good kinyan. To someone that doesn't exist yet, because inside the mother's womb, mishamatli, who heard that lid davar shlebaylam should be kinyan. So that's what Ravuna therefore says. But I might hold that other makta davar shalei b'la'olam. I think you had a mafkid about Peter's dekel, but lid davar shalei b'la'olam to an uber, to a baby inside the mother's womb, unheard of. Said the Gemara, okay, now the Gemara's going to try to work through. Maybe the author, who the author, Rabbi Mishnah says, I don't know the author of our Mishnah. It's a mystery to me. Said the Gemara, why? Say the author of our Mishnah, Rabbi Yasi. What's the Maisa there? The Amar who says, uber kani. Rabbi Yasi says that uber is kani. Now we learned, uber poisel ve'enum meichel. A kohen marries a bas Yisrael, she can eat now truma. If the bas Yisrael then has a child, and the kohen dies, she continues eating truma because of her child. But what happens if the kohen dies and she's pregnant, but the child wasn't born yet? There's a machlekes if she can eat based on this child. So Rabbi Yosi says that ube pasels. For example, there are avodim there in the estate. They can no longer eat truma because there's an uber there, and the Eino Michael, but does not entitle them to eat. The mother cannot eat, the avodim cannot eat. Why can't they eat? So there's two explanations. One explanation, the Rashbam brings two together as if they're one, and everybody is wondering what's Pshat and Rashbam. But the basic explanation is that the child does not become a kohen until the child is born. Kolzman's in her mother's womb is like the mother. And the mother is a Bas Yisrael. So the child is a Zor. When the child is born, then it takes on the father's what do you call it? Shevet, which is a Kohen. So therefore, Kolzman's in the mother's womb can't be Michael the mother, can't be Michael the Avad. Yeah. Because in other words, because the Torah says you lead Besa, there's no you lead Besa here because he wasn't born yet. What do you go? Second so what do we see from here? And yet he passes all the avodim, which means he owns the avodim. The Uber owns the avodim. And he passes them, but he can't give them yet the right to eat from. So what do we see from here? That an Uber can be koina. How is he koina the avodim? Obviously, when his father died, he becomes the Yodish and he yashes the avodim. So therefore, he passes them. We don't just say, oh, they continue being the koins estate. They continue being koins estate, and they can eat from. No, the fact that there's a baby there, the baby owns them, but he can't be Michael them. He's not a Yelid Beisa yet. So therefore, because he's not a Yelid Beisa, he can't be Michael. So what do we see from here? That a Uber is koina. So that's the author of our Mishnah. What's the problem? Shiny Yerusha Bomela. Yerusha is different than a kinyan. Our Mishnah is talking about that someone said, a father said, I'm taking this $100. He gives it to the person. I want you to acquire it on behalf of the baby. A boy 100, for a girl 200. You can't make a kinyan transaction. There's nothing to make a kinyan with. There's no child here yet. Yerusha happens, the Tatum says that there's a brokar davua, and that starts in the mother's womb. It happens automatically. So you want to okay, it's not that. But let's say Sabiyechem Ebreki. What Sabiyechem Ebreki says? Sabiyechem Ebreki says that a father can say that I want this child to have more of the Yerusha than this other child, right? Not like the Chacham say, hey, you can't be married, but you can't be married. No, Sabiyechem Ebreki says you can. He says it makes no difference if it's a Yerusha, and it makes no difference if the father says, I want to gift this child more than the other one. It makes no difference. You can do both. It's not. As long as that person is one of his children who's suitable to be Tiyasha, one of the boys, is a devote of Kayamin. His words are in existence. So again, we see from here what he holds Yerusha and Matan in the same din. So since Yerusha, you agree Yerusha l'chayda, according to Rabbi Yossi, Yerusha haba me'elav can happen while the child's an uber. So Rabbi Yechim Beroika said there's no achil and Allah and Yerusha. We'll take Rabbi Yechim Beroika, add it on to Rabbi Yossi, and then say that an uber, since you just told me can be Yiddish inside the mother's womb, can also receive a matana, and that's the author of our Mishnah. Says the Gemara, well, who said? Rabbi Yechim Beroika talking about the child's alive already. And therefore, you can choose to give one child more than the others. When did he say about an embryo, a child in the womb that can be yashin? So put the two together and make a new tana out of that. So you decided to create a new tana. How do you know that Rabbi Yechim Beroika and holds like Rabbi Yossi? This whole cheshbon. So therefore, we goes back to what Ravuna said. I don't know who the author of our Mishnah is that you could be mezakeh to some davar she'ein b'olam. Says the Gemara. So let's learn the Mishnah very different. We just introduced before the idea that sometimes the father would give it directly to his son or daughter, but sometimes he says whoever will tell me, whoever mevasreini, I'll give to that party the money. So that's what Amish is talking about. He's not giving it to the davar shaloi b'olam. He's not giving it to the uber. He's giving it to the third party. He said, if you're going to tell me it's a boy, you get 100. If you tell me it's a girl, you'll get 200. That's how. That's nothing to do with lid davar shaloi b'olam. We're talking about a guy who will give me the good news. Says the Gemara, so the Tani Sefer, and says there later on in the very same Mishnah, talking about the tumtum as well, talking about the boy, the girl, tumtum, and we say there's nobody to inherit. This man, then the tumtum yashins. Eluhu Yeresh Hakol. Who's talking about the children? You're telling me we're talking about the third party. Where does he come in? How come he yashins? Even Vaseini Yeresh Ma'avinate. Where does that come into this contrast? The Mishnah is trying to say it. Normally, I doesn't get nothing, but Yeresh. But if he's only Yeresh, he will. We're talking about Vaseini here. Okay, let's do something else. Bishiyolda. Let's say you're right. While the uber is inside the mother's womb, it can't be kind of. It's a little double shalom. But when this child is born, it's chal then. It's effective then. Now it's a little double shalom. Say it happened when he was born. Says the Gemara. So we're not being mazaket to the uber. We're being mazaket to the uber when he's a child. So it can't be that's what the Mishnah is talking about. You tell me he's talking about when he was born already. The Tani Sefer, if he says Kol Masha Taylor Ishti, whatever my wife gives birth to, Yita should take. What do you mean we're gonna give birth? You're telling me he already gave birth. You're telling me that he said that whatever my wife he's saying that whatever my wife gave birth to already, a boy like this, a girl like this, and if he said whatever or and nothing. But if he said whatever, a tumta should get then also as well. Whatever my wife gives birth to, she get. So it should be past tense. You tell me it's not chal until it already happened. So why is he saying future tense? How did Yitl kosher Taylor kosher Yoldem about it? Should have said whatever my wife gave birth to, because that's what you're talking about. So it can't be talking about that. So that's why the one is stuck. Who is the author of Mishnah? The Amar, let's say, Im Taylor. That he said Likisha Taylor. Maybe what it means is that. Just say that what he meant was that the Bezakal Uber, he's saying it now, but I don't want it to take effect until it's born. Let's just say it. So he's saying whatever my wife has, you should if you claim $100, $200, but when the child comes to the world, in other words, but in that case, something still happened right now. He can't change his mind. So even though the kinyan hasn't been concluded yet, because it's a ledover, the child isn't born yet, but it starts now. It's not completely chal until the child is born. So that already is a chiddush. The Gemara says Avuna can't learn that way either. The Taimei, the Amar Avuna says, even when the child comes to the fore, nothing happened. If nothing happened while the child nothing happened. So therefore, when the child comes out, nothing happened. There's no kinyan to be chal. If you want, you have to start again and give it to that person at that time. What you did while the child was inside the mother's womb, nothing happened. It's not like it started then and finishes when the child is born. Rav Nachman holds it does. It starts then, it goes weiter. And Rav Huna holds, so interesting, Rav Huna holds that other matne davar shaloi b'olam, but not a lid davar shaloi b'olam. And Rav Nachman actually holds kum faket. That you could be makna lid davar shaloi b'olam when it comes into the elam, But he holds ain't other makadovish, but something that right now is not in existence, you cannot, the commodity you cannot sell because there's nothing. In other words, he places more important on the object that's being transferred, and Abhuna places more important on the person, the transferee, the person who's supposed to be makabel that object. The Omar Ab Nachman said, "Hamazakir leube loikana likisheteled." The Nachman said, even when it's born, nothing happened. And Abhuna Amar, sorry, Nachman loikana likisheteled kana. Sorry, the Nachman says when the child is born, it'll be chal then. Not that you make a new kinyan. The kinyan you did back then started, but it doesn't complete till it's born. And Abhuna says, "Af likisheteled loikana," even when it's born loikana. And Avsheshet has a third opinion. Echadzeh, the echadzeh kana. And both are kind of even to lidava shalai balaylam, as we'll see tomorrow when we continue with Avshesh's opinion. See you tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.